Hi, my name is Amy Schiebel, and I'm the Science Director of the Office of Science Outreach at Edgewood College. And while we are all at home, being very careful not to get in contact with too many people, we know that a lot of you have children at home, and you want to make sure that those children are occupied and that their education continues. And science is a great way to do it. It's a lot of fun. Lots of hands-on materials that we can work with. And so we want to make sure that you parents have a few resources that you can draw upon. And that's what these videos are for. So today we're going to talk about another one of those really important basic skills in science, and that's classification. Scientists classify things. You might think about biology right away, and we think about classifying things. Is it a plant or an animal? These days we're thinking a lot about viruses. Those aren't a plant or an animal. They're something else entirely. So biologists use classification to make sense of all the living things in the world. I'm a geologist, and so geologists use classification to make sense of all of the different materials that make up our Earth. And classification is one of those things that humans just use all the time to make sense of their world. We classify things in terms of places that are safe for us to be, places that are not safe for us to be. We even classify people. These are the people that are in our family. These are my aunts. These are my uncles. So classification is a tool that we use just in life, and it's also very important in science where we're trying to make sense of the world. So I scoured my house a little bit and found a bunch of rocks and mineral specimens that I have, and I'll take any opportunity to share those with people. So I'm going to grab the camera here, and you can just sort of take a look at some of these things that I have here. They're pretty. Some of them are different colors. You're probably already starting to classify things in your head in terms of some of them seem to have fossils or the remains of living things in them. Some of them are shiny like a metal. Some of them are made up of lots of bits and pieces of things. Let me see if I can get this back. And if I were going to classify these things as a geologist, one of the things I might do first is classify them as either rocks or minerals. So rocks are made up of minerals, but rocks are made up of one or more minerals. So I could start to put these things like this. This is a limestone. This is banded iron formation. You might see some of the red stripes and the black stripes. This is a very old rock. This is another rock. You can see it's got black bits and white bits. That means those are all different minerals. So I'd put those in my rock pile. All kinds of rocks. Here's some more of that lovely banded iron formation. See, pretty. Some of these are minerals. This is just one solid mineral, so I'll put that on this side. Here's another one that's a mineral. I'll put that on this side. Ooh, this is a lovely. You can see the crystals growing on that. That's a mineral. So I could go through. Ooh, how do you like this one? This one doesn't even qualify as a rock or a mineral because rocks and minerals have to be naturally occurring, and this is man-made. So I have to put it way over here in its own little category. It's not really a rock. So I could divide all of these up, a pretty shiny one, full of copper, into my rocks and minerals. How about this one for an odd way for a mineral to grow? That looks like a man-made thing, but it's not. All right. So now I've got these classified into two groups. I've got my rocks over here and my minerals over here. But of course I would not be done. I could now divide these up. One way I could divide them is that I have some of these rocks, like this one. This is just a regular rock, but it has a big fossil in it. And here's another rock that has a fossil in it, trilobite, same as this one. This big one, of course, is a fossil. It's a coral. And a bunch of them don't have fossils in them. This one doesn't have fossils in them. These granites cooled from a magma, they don't have fossils in them. So, of course, those would be in a different category. And I could do the same thing with my minerals. I have some of them, like this one, that looks all shiny like a metal. We call those metallic. And then I have ones that are not, and those are non-metallic. So that is one way we would continue to do classification with rocks as a geologist. But you don't need these, any of these. If you have a lot of rocks, great, use those with your kids. But you can do all of this classification on things that are not rocks and not minerals. So I went into one of my messier drawers and I found pens, pencils, markers, all kinds of leavings from when my children were in school. So we're going to classify these. So if I had to classify these, I might ask my child, can you put these into two piles so that everything in one pile is the same and everything in the other pile is the same, but the two piles are different. So maybe one of the first things I would do is I would think, okay, I'm going to separate pencils on one side and pens on the other side. So I could go through, separate my pencils and my pens. I might come to some of these things that are markers and I might have to scratch my head for a while and think, well, it's not really an ink pen, but it's certainly not a pencil. Where do these go? If I can only make two piles, how am I going to decide where to go? So for now, I'm going to put them in the pen pile. Your child might come up with something completely different. They might do things that seem to have a pointy end and things that have a rounded end. Perfectly fine. There is no right way or wrong way to classify these. So once we get these put into our two piles, okay, we'll pretend I did that mindfully, then you can ask your child, okay, now take one of those piles, can you divide that one into two piles so that one set has similar characteristics and the other side all have similar characteristics, but the two piles are different. So if I was working with my pencil pile, oops, wrong pile. If I was working with my pencil pile, I might decide that I am going to divide it into things that have regular pencil lead, gray lead, and things that are colored pencils. I could divide those up. All right, that's great, I do that. Then I might ask, guess what? You saw it coming. How can I divide now these? How can I separate them into different piles? Well, if I look at my regular pencils, I might do one pile with a fancy eraser and other ones with plain erasers. Or maybe it's they have erasers and they don't have erasers. So we keep dividing and we keep asking children about the characteristics of the items that they put into the piles. What is the characteristic that you're going to use to divide these one from another? The nice thing is you can do this with anything, and the more your children do it, the better they get at it. And it's not that they're going to be good at classifying pencils, but they start getting the notion of these shared characteristics, different characteristics. They become very observant. Once they've done their pencil, pen, and pencil drawer, if you did something like this, you can put them all together, ask them to do it again, but based on different characteristics. So it's a great way to use any of these things. You have a pile. You could use a button box. You have a whole bunch of buttons. They could separate those. They could separate their toys. Get out those Legos again. You could separate the Legos and just continue to do this kind of classification of items based on shared characteristics. Enjoy!